Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:05. Good afternoon. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who's in for Brian Wilson later on this afternoon at 3 during the drive. It's just springtime musical chairs here on WTN. Glad to have you with us. Now, I don't know what you're doing later on today, but apparently it's Moral Monday. Did you know it was Moral Monday, Producer Bell?
Every day is a moral day for me.
Is it now?
Absolutely.
Is an immoral day? Is that what you said? I thought that's what I heard
said
you say.
a moral day. I'm a good person. I don't do wrong things. I don't do bad stuff. What, having trouble swallowing that?
Yes. Excuse me. Anyway, today at 2 o'clock at McKendree United Methodist Church here in Nashville, folks will gather from all around the state where they say forward together, not one step back. They want you to register. There's a code to scan where you can register. I guess they want to know who you are. Bishop William J. Barber II is leading Tennessee Moral Monday. Now, if you don't know anything about William Barber, let me shed some light on him. He comes from North Carolina and made lots of news when he would protest at the Capitol, saying that North Carolina redistricting that they've done over the years was disenfranchising black people from, they were keeping them from voting and that it was illegal. And he has sued numerous times. He's won and lost and won and lost and won and lost and won and lost. And I don't even know where it stands now. But holy smokes, he is one that would make you believe that white people don't want black people to vote anymore. And I'm sorry, that's just a lie. So why is he here in Tennessee, you ask? Well, he has now, I'm going to say glammed on to, if that's even a word. Glammed on. He has attached himself to the so-called Tennessee 3 story. And even more specifically, the Justin Zena Johnson story. He's jumped on this bandwagon because it's now the national news narrative. Where there's a camera, there's a William Barber. Especially if you're talking about race, which somehow or another, this has turned into race. Not that 6 innocent people were killed at Covenant School. Oh, no. It's turned into race somehow or another. And so today, I think, along with Representatives Justin Jones, Justin Pearson, and Gloria Johnson, William Barber will be gathering at the McKendree United Methodist Church, and they're going to march to the state capitol with children's caskets in hand, saying innocent children are dying at the hands of the white Republicans in the state of Tennessee. And they're adding other things to this. In fact, here's a quote, a direct quote from William Barber. Death from guns, death from poverty, death from denial of health care, and none of these have to exist. Well, I've got news for you, William Barber. Not all of those exist, but let me continue. He says, these are the results of policy murder. Policy murder, he says. A moral third reconstruction can change these things. Do not be deceived, everybody. This is about voting. They want to change Tennessee from red to blue. And they're going to have a hard time doing that because the truth of the matter is this. People in Wilson County, Dixon County, Putnam County. I mean, I can go on and on. Shelby County would be in that group. Let's see. Name some other counties. Loudoun County, Anderson County. I can't name all 99 of them. But all of these counties outside of Davidson and outside of Shelby County are deep deep red. Deep red. But they believe because of this story that they've hijacked, that they have an opportunity to change the color, no pun, of the state of Tennessee. Now, again, they're going to have a really hard time doing that. However, you have young people who aren't fully cooked yet, who are being influenced on TikTok, on Twitter, on the gram. I don't think they're being influenced on Facebook. I don't know a lot of young people who use Facebook anymore. So on the gram, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, in their high schools and colleges, where they see young people marching to the Capitol and they go, oh, I want to do this. They're not rebels. They're followers. This seems like fun. Let's go to the Capitol and sing Kumbaya and this little light of mine I'm going to let shine. And all of those things. Not knowing what is truly behind all of this. So this is dangerous because young people can vote. 18 years old, you can vote. And this is what they're looking to do, is to begin to influence the 18, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who want to be rebellious against their Republican parents because they don't understand them. This is what these Moral Mondays are going to be about. And they're hoping the young black men and women in the state of Tennessee in deep, deep red counties are influenced to think that white people hate you, white people don't want to see you vote, and if white people could, they'd bring back the Jim Crow laws. And that's a lie. It's not true. Now, there may be some idiots out there, in very, very small numbers that have ideologies like that. But that is not who Tennessee is. You might have some idiots out there who think the white race is the most, supreme race. They're idiots. They don't have influence here. They may in their own little echo chamber of about, 10, 15 in their little county somewhere. But it is not huge numbers, and it's not growing in numbers. But that's what the left wants you to believe. So here's my, we're going to follow this. We'll see how loud this gets at the Capitol. But understand, William Barber doesn't live here. William Barber is an outsider. He's from North Carolina. So this isn't being headed up by Tennesseans. It's being headed up by people outside of the state. Now, I doubt very seriously if they're going to be able to influence how we vote in the 2024 presidential election. We're too deep red. But they could have an effect on our state house a little bit. You don't think they can? I do. You know why? Because they've hijacked the narrative, and we have some lawmakers in this state who are letting them. We have some lawmakers in this state who continue to allow them to hijack the narrative, and there's not a lot of pushback. If I were the state Republican Party, and if I were the Republicans that are already in the state House and Senate, I would hire a crisis control manager to help you figure out what your message is going to be, because I'm not sure you can rest on old ways these days. They are winning the game at getting national attention. You are not. They are winning the game at hijacking the message. You are not. It's unfortunate because with all of this, we've lost focus. We're not demanding to see the manifesto from the Covenant school shooter. It's just being lost in the shuffle. While everybody was distracted, the governor signed a bill for, I'm going to say it, toll lanes. You can call it choice lanes if you want to, but he signed that bill into legislation. I believe it was this morning. They're distracting you from realizing that it's not death from guns, it's death from criminals. It's death from the mental health crisis that people are in, and the shootings that continue by bad people. We have to be stiffer at penalizing people who use a gun to settle arguments. And Shelby County's the worst. You got to demand your people, and I'm pointing the finger at my white people too, be better. And if you're not, you'll do the time. Death from poverty, death from denial of health care. There's not one person whose life is in danger that shows up at the hospitals here in Nashville and beyond will be turned away because they can't afford it. If they have life-threatening problems, by law, they have to be tended to. A moral third reconstruction can change these things. That's their mission. Be aware of it and be ready to fight. We can't be lazy because we're deep red. We can't be lazy when it comes to this year's primary and general election that's coming up. There's a mayor's election here in Nashville. We can't be lazy about that. Too many people don't seem to care anymore and don't show up at the ballot box. And the Republicans got this. I'm not worried. Before you know it, you may be purple in Tennessee and then blue. Yikes. So that's what's happening today. Tennessee Moral Monday. And I guess it's going to happen from now until the third reconstruction can change things in the state of Tennessee. Be aware of it, guys. Heck, if I didn't have to be somewhere today, I'd go down there just to see what they're saying. Infiltrate, if you will, just to see what's up. 12:19. I've got more on this and some other things coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:22. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in for Brian Wilson later on this afternoon, so be listening for that. Here's William Barber and what he had to say about the Poor People's Campaign, repairer of the breach. He is, I guess, the bishop of the repairers of the breach, and he's going to be here for Moral Monday in the state of Tennessee.
We intend to stay. One thing about faith, it doesn't say that victory comes to the fastest. It says, but to those who endure to the end. This is a moral issue. We can't back up. I'm not coming in helicopter leadership. Most of the voices you're going to hear Monday will be clergy in Tennessee and impacted people. They just asked us to come to help launch Moral Monday, Tennessee. But the launching is just the beginning, and we're going to stay and stick with this until we see fundamental change.
Yeah. All right. So what's the fundamental change that you're calling for? I mean, for me, it just seems like we want change. When do you want it? Now. What's the change? Yes. But what do you want to change? We do. Right? That's what it feels like to me. What do you want to change? What needs to be different? Yes. It needs to be different, they say.
It's like when people yell for government to do something.
Right.
What do you want them to do? Something. They need to fix it. Yeah,
fix what?
If you're asking government to fix your problems, you got pretty bad problems.
Yeah, you're in deep doo-doo, as they say. And I go back to the research that I did. I had this before anybody else had this. Justin Jones and Justin Pearson. Of course, Pearson gets a pass because he had only been in the legislature for maybe 10 days. But Justin Jones had been elected. He had plenty of time to file legislation that he thinks would help keep schools safer and the citizens of Tennessee safer. He could have introduced gun legislation, and he didn't. He didn't introduce any of it. But he wants you to believe that the establishment Republican Party's been trying to silence him. Now, I will say that there is video out there of legislators not allowing debate on Democrat bills. That is true. But they're not any of Justin Jones' bills, at least on guns, because you know why? He didn't file any. He didn't even sign up to co-sponsor any. The only co-sponsor stuff I saw, and there's more, but I was looking specifically for guns. I saw a whole lot of commemorating, 90th birthdays for citizens, which is fine. That's what you do. It's a 99th birthday of somebody in his district, or he signs on to somebody else's, whatever. All those little things. But I didn't see anything significant come out of him. Now, I did see Heidi Campbell, and I want to say it was Bob Freeman on the House side, introduced some gun legislation, a so-called red flag bill. I don't think it got anywhere. It may still now be in committee. I don't think it's going to go anywhere this year. But at least she puts her money where her mouth is, so does Bob Freeman, whether I agree with the legislation or not. And if they do try to silence you, fine, then you have an argument. But nobody's trying to silence you on legislation if you haven't introduced any. And yet they're looking for change. What kind of change? What are you looking for? In a deep red state, you're not going to be able to ban so-called assault weapons. Please, for my 2A fans, notice I said so-called assault weapons. That's what they call them. You're not going to be able to do that. So stop spinning your wheels. Come up with a compromise. Come up with a way to handle situations that come up that put children in danger. There is, I think, legislation that is going to be introduced today on the House floor. It is House Bill 1202, which would allow teachers to carry guns in schools. And those on the left, even though there are few of them in the State House, would tell you this is dangerous. And will say things like, really? You want more guns in schools? Understand, it's only if a teacher chooses to. They won't be forced to carry guns. It's if they choose to. And I haven't read all of the bill, but I would venture to say that if a teacher decides to have a weapon, there would be a way to store it in such a way that they can get to it quickly if they need it, and they'd know how to use it. You certainly don't want someone with a gun around children who don't know how to use that weapon or would be too afraid to use that weapon. I would hope that if a teacher decided that they wanted to carry a weapon with them to school, that they would be trained in it. I would hope so. Justin Jones tweeted, "This is an irresponsible response to school shootings and will not keep students safe." Really? You're telling me that if a threat happens at a school, a teacher being able to eliminate that threat with his weapon isn't a good idea? How long does it take police to get to schools? It's an average of 3 minutes. How much damage can be done in 3 minutes when you have a school shooter on campus? We learned that Covenant, that shooter, shot her weapons, more than 150 times? That took police officers a little longer to get there than 3 minutes. That's a story for another day, I suppose. They'll go back and figure out what took so long or what they were doing. But we saw exactly what happened when police arrived. We have the body cam footage. Had a teacher had a weapon that day, they could have eliminated the threat before police got there. Possibly. The truth of the matter is, having a weapon in school, I would think, and then we have to take a break here, but teachers being allowed to carry a weapon in school is probably more for defense, not actually walking out into the hallway and looking for the shooter and shooting them. It's more of, I'm hovering with my kids where I need to be, and if the shooter presents himself or herself in front of me, then I can take them out and protect these kids. That's probably more. So more for defense, not for offense, if you will. I'm not an expert. I'm just thinking it through here. But I want to point this out once again. They won't be forced to have a weapon. They'll be able to choose to have a weapon once this bill passes and is signed by the governor. It's 12:32. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:36. Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in for Brian Wilson later on today. Hope you had a fabulous weekend. And I do want to say hello to John Daly and other celebrities who are playing golf today. Did you know that, Belle? They're playing golf today in Williamson County, just down the road with Kid Rock. I bet you they've got some Bud Light out there. What you want to bet?
No, I don't think they do.
Well, say hello. That's probably John Daly calling right there. At any rate, welcome, guys, to our fair city. Now, it's my understanding that Donald Trump was in town, and I heard Matt Bassett earlier, who was on from 9 to noon today. He was saying that Donald Trump actually was in town. I knew he was in town for the RNC, and we'll talk about that, but that he was actually playing golf here in our fair Middle Tennessee area with John Daly. So I don't know if that was Friday or Saturday, but very cool. I think that's cool. I love it when people play golf at our golf courses. And the weather has just been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. Now, I know a lot of people have been reading things about the RNC meeting that happened Friday night, and I guess it was a retreat, Friday night and Saturday night. And then suddenly, today, you get all of this information that Marsha Blackburn, Bill Hagerty, our U.S. senators, and I know at least one U.S. congressman from Tennessee, and that would be John Rose, have now decided to endorse Donald Trump for president of the United States. Now, I'm a fan. I know some of you don't think I am. I am a fan of Donald Trump. Yes, I am. I'm more of a fan of what he did for our country than the way that sometimes he delivered his speeches about what he's done for this country. I hate the whole voting debacle. I mean, all of it. You know, I hate all of that, all the past, and I hate the way some things have been handled. But if you're going to ask me how to judge him on how he was president of the United States and what he did for us, for you, and for me, I'm going to give him a 98%. And I'd give him a 100%, but nobody's perfect. So 98%. But I have to wonder, endorsing him this soon before you know who all the candidates are, if that is the right way to go. And I have to wonder this, if they're out endorsing now, does that mean that Ron DeSantis is going to choose not to run? You know what I mean? Because it seems a little early for me. Mike Pompeo has come out and said, nope, this is not my time. I'm not going to run. You have others. I think Tim Scott is out there who has started an exploratory committee to see about the possibility of running. Nikki Haley's out there. There's some others who have declared they're going to run. I honestly think they're running for the VP spot, not for the presidential spot, but whatever. I don't know. Something happened, I think, this weekend at this retreat that caused them to say, okay, now's the time. It just seems a little early to me until you see what Ron DeSantis and others do. So at any rate, that's from the political side of things, what is happening in politics. Big donors were in town at the Four Seasons over the weekend, and you did have some protesters as well. Now, I do want to remind you about this. This is interesting to me. If you're keeping tabs of what is happening with the Nissan, well, not Nissan Stadium, but the new stadium that's being proposed, the new Titan Stadium here in the state. There's still a lot of back and forth, and this is good, and this is bad, and this is good, and this is bad. Here's some minutia that I honestly found interesting, and this is coming from the Tennessee Lookout. The author of this piece is Adam Friedman, not necessarily a conservative group, but nonetheless, the story is interesting. So Nashville sports and concert lobbying groups are trying to remove an amendment that opponents of the new stadium project pushed through in the late hours of a Metro Council meeting 2 weeks ago. I was unaware of this. Maybe you were, but I was unaware of this. The amendment proposed by Council Member Brandon Taylor passed with a narrow 19-18 vote at around 1 a.m. on April the 5th. And it would change the structure of ticket fees or taxes imposed on non-NFL events. Potentially, I'll say it right here, potentially, there we go, impacting the bottom lines of the Titans, major college sports leagues, promoters, and artists most likely to benefit from a new stadium. So here's how it goes. And again, this is from the Tennessee Lookout. It puts money right back into the city of Nashville to pave roads, fix potholes, and fund transit. This is Taylor, Councilman Taylor, telling the Lookout. Some people will never set foot in the stadium, so I wanted to ensure all of Nashville gets some benefits. Well, first of all, I thought that's why my property taxes went up. 2 years ago? Has it been 2 years ago now, Bill? 3 years, something like that. My property taxes went up 34%. I thought that was supposed to pave roads, fix potholes, fund transit, pay some of our bills. Under the original deal, each ticket for events like concerts and college sports that would happen at the stadium would come with a $3 flat fee, with the revenue directed into a fund that the Titans could use on stadium renovations to the new facility, right? Well, Taylor's proposal changed that payment to a 3% fee, which would incrementally raise to a maximum of 10 years over the next 7 years. Does that make sense? So like the first year would be 3%, then the next year would be 4%, then the next year would be 5%, like that. With the first $3 of that percentage going to the renovation fund, and then the rest going to the city's general fund. Sounds okay on the surface, right? Until you think about having to pay for a ticket to something. Do you think promoters are going to incur that 10% fee? Soon to be 10% fee. The 3% fee this year, 4% next, 5%. You think the promoter's going to incur that cost? No. Do you think the artist who's performing or the college team that may be playing a game there, do you think they're going to incur the fee? Of course not. You and I are going to incur the fee. So Brandon Taylor, maybe his heart was in the right place, but that means you and I, who may never set foot in the new stadium to watch a football game, but might buy a ticket to see Garth Brooks, we're penalized and have to pay more because you added this part to the project here. There is debate on whether to call these charges a fee or a tax. I'm going to call it a tax. I'm going to call it an entertainment tax. The mayor's office and the Titans are calling this a fee as part of the team's rent for the new stadium to lower the threshold from 27 to 21 votes necessary to pass the deal. This means the ticket fee or tax doesn't have to be paid by the ticket buyers. Instead, the Titans and promoters can choose themselves whether to pass it on to consumers. Of course, they're going to pass it on to the consumers. The letter was signed by leaders of the Academy of Country Music, Big Machine Grand Prix, Creative Artist Agency, Country Music Association, Country Music Television, Fellovision. Fellovision? What is Fellovision? Is that like Dude Vision? Fellovision? I don't know. I've never heard of Fellovision. Live Nation and WME. A Titans spokesperson said they opposed the amendment, saying altering one piece of the financial structure impacts the entire agreement. Those favoring Taylor's amendment argued the Titans, companies, or tourists attending events like the Final Four or the SEC championship game or concerts would pay the ticket fee. They don't care because they're loaded. Taylor added the amendment is a way for taxpayers to directly benefit from a deal designed to capture all tax revenue from stadium events and put it towards stadium costs. I am a conservative. I don't care where they tack it on. No new taxes. Period. No new taxes. Do I need to say it one more time? No new taxes. Although the amendment passed and it's currently attached to a stadium deal legislation, its status isn't fully confirmed, and the body eventually agreed to delay a second reading approval until its April 18th meeting, which is tomorrow. So if I were you, in Nashville and beyond, make some phone calls and say these 3 words. No, say it with me. No new taxes. 1248. I'm Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 12:55. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy, who will be in later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock, so be listening for that. I have to bring this up. I know this is sports, and we're not a sports station, but this goes beyond sports, in my opinion. Holy smokes. Jalen Hurts, who is a former quarterback for the Alabama Crimson Tide. He played for God bless, I can't talk today. He played for the Philadelphia Eagles last year, right? And lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. He just signed a record-breaking deal to stay with the Philadelphia Eagles. You want to take a gander at how much money his contract is for, Belle? Have you seen the story yet? You have any idea how much they're going to pay him?
No. How many years is the contract for?
The contract is for, good grief, hang on. It's for a couple of years. How's
2
that?
years? I will say
5-year extension through the 2028 season.
I will say $250 million.
Oh, man. You've read the story.
I have not.
It's 255.
255.
You were really close. It is the biggest deal in NFL history. Holy, $255 million. They're going to pay this guy, and it's guaranteed. I think $180 million is guaranteed in the deal, and $15 million a season in incentives.
Well, and that's where the if comes in. It's like,
if you do this, then you'll get this. Yeah, exactly.
If you make it to the Super Bowl, if you win the Super Bowl, if you get this record,
But 100, and by the way, there's a no trade clause in that contract, which apparently is the first in Eagles history. You're guaranteed $180 million. And you know what? Good for that young man. He was a really, really great quarterback. And that was a really great Super Bowl game. But I watched him play for Alabama for a little bit because, Coach Saban had to choose between which great quarterback he would keep and one he would let go. So he kept Tua, if I remember correctly. Jalen Hurts went away. I'm not a
This
sports...
makes me wonder what his agent's cut is.
Well, so they put a picture. It's actually a female, and her name is Nicole Lynn. I would think it's got to be at least 15 to 25%, don't you?
15 to 20, somewhere in there.
Think about that. But good for her. She's the one that negotiated it. She did what she earned every dime for that contract. So good for him. Man, I wish I was a football player.
Show me the money. Okay.
Yeah, no kidding. Of course, obviously, he's going to do good things with that money. They always, found a charity and all that kind of stuff for tax write-offs. And because, of good causes. And Jesus has blessed him, so he wants to give back like you're supposed to. But congratulations to that guy. Have we made any kind of deal like that with the Tennessee Titans? I don't think for that much. Of course, when's the last time we went to a Super Bowl? It's been a while. Has it been 20 years yet? It's been a while. So, looking forward to this year's football season. It's 1 o'clock. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 105. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who is in for Brian Wilson later on this afternoon. So be listening at 3 o'clock for The Drive. Glad to have you on board. I'm going to do this, Belle. I apologize in advance. I'm clearing the phone lines. So if, well, maybe. Yeah, there we go. So if you have a comment today, you're more than welcome to make it. I am particularly looking for anybody who may, by chance, be a part of this march that's happening this afternoon. There's a rally at 2 o'clock that's happening. Let's see. It's at a church. Hold on. There we go. It is at McKendree United Methodist Church, which is on Church Street here in Nashville, 523 Church Street to be exact. And the person that's leading this march today is Bishop William J. Barber. He is the president and senior lecturer for a group called Repairers of the Breach. He's also I'm going to call him an activist because I have known who he is for years and years and years. He's from North Carolina and would hold these Moral Monday rallies at the state capitol in North Carolina, in Raleigh. And what he was protesting at the time was so-called voter disenfranchisement because he said and he believed redistricting in the state of North Carolina disenfranchised black voters, which somebody has to explain that to me. How is redistricting going to keep a black man from heading to the polls to vote? Or a black woman to head to the polls to vote? I don't understand that. How does that stop you? At any rate, I digress. So William Barber is in town now, and he's going to join Tennessee and national faith leaders who will lead a Tennessee Moral Monday event today. 2 o'clock at the church. The march begins at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and they plan to arrive at the Capitol at 4 o'clock this afternoon. The Moral Monday rally will highlight the death from guns, death from denial of health care, and death from poverty that results from extremists in legislatures across the country using state capitals to subvert our democracy. Representatives Justice from press release now. Representatives Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, quote, may have been rightfully returned to their seats, but that does not remotely cover up the moral decay brought to the fore the last few weeks. Interesting. 615-737-9986. It looks like we have Representative Mike Sparks on the line. Hey, Mike, how are you?
Hey, doing good. Just leaving Home Depot, and I heard your comments. Wanted to see if you could ask that pastor if he took a stand about John DeBerry being taken off the ballot. A 26-year black lawmaker who marched with Dr. King was at the mountaintop speech the day Dr. King gave it the night before he was assassinated, and they took him off the ballot. I wonder if that pastor took a stand on that.
Well, remind people who may not be familiar with this story, Mike, remind people what that's about. So John DeBerry was a Democratic lawmaker. And because he was pro-life and against abortion, the Democratic Party removed him from the ballot, correct?
Correct. Because he had a brain and he stood with the Constitution and he stood for the unborn, they had to, this is all pre-planned. I mean, I guess you see it. Most people should see this. They had to remove John DeBerry to have these others come in because John could refute everything people say about discrimination because John lived through that.
Right.
I'd love for you to have DeBerry come on the radio with you sometime.
Well, you know what? I need to. I have met him, and he is just a delightful human being.
He is.
Yeah, he really is. Doesn't he work for the governor now?
Yeah, Justin. Justin sits behind me at the Capitol, and
right.
Justin's extremely articulate. And he quoted, he said, what they meant for evil, God meant for good. Well, that's Genesis 50, verse 20. That's what Joseph told his brothers who sold him into slavery. But John, what they meant for evil, God meant for good, because John went from making $40,000 a year to $175,000 a year, and give God the glory for it, but also give praise to Governor Bill Lee for having the wisdom and discernment to see how effective John DeBerry. But have John on the radio, and this is all pre-planned. I mean, if people don't see this, and Christians need to get off their butt and come up here to the Capitol and start praying, and not just sit back in the recliners and watching the Titans game and everything else. Christians got to get involved and start stepping up.
Well, I don't disagree with that at all. Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all, because we're going to end up losing our state. We're going to end up losing our country if we're not careful, because these activists are out there, and they may wear the name Christian, they may wear the name Bishop, but they're not doing anything that I would say is remotely Christian.
Yes. Well, they own the media. 90% of the media is controlled by about five players, and they're not going to tell the story about John DeBerry. I mean, no one's told that story. I mean, you think about it, Pam. The first African American to be on the same floors at the state capitol. I mean, the first African American, and that's not in the news. If people don't see this is spiritual warfare, Ephesians 6:12, go read your Bible and just open your eyes to what's going on. But John, just keep your eye on John DeBerry. Have him on the radio. And I'll hang up and listen. Thank you for speaking up on these things, okay?
Sure, you got it. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have a good day as well. It is 1:11. And again, if you're not familiar with the story, he was removed from the Democratic primary ballot after 26 years in office. He was a Democrat. Voted because, quote, he wasn't exemplifying the basic democratic principles, according to the party. His anti-abortion views were the major factor. DeBerry himself protested that it hadn't been the voters in his district that had taken him off the ballot, but instead a, quote, tribunal took me off the ballot that has absolutely nothing to do with my district. He was right. He was done wrong. And I know Mike Sparks says nobody talked about it. We did talk about this when it happened back in 2020, in May of 2020. 615-737-9986. Let's go to Wayne in Hendersonville. Hey, Wayne.
Hey, Pamela. To your point and what you guys have been talking about, Tennessee going blue.
Well, it's nowhere near getting blue at this moment, but go ahead.
Well, but see, I have been on my state representative for quite a while about putting in some type of an electoral college type system that would prevent Nashville and Memphis and eventually Knoxville or Chattanooga, because Knoxville and Chattanooga is purple at this point. And we know that Memphis and Nashville are totally blue, but some kind of system that would keep the power equal throughout the entire state when it comes to voting, because we don't want to end up like California with L.A. and San Francisco and San Diego calling the shots for the entire state, or like New York, where New York City, Buffalo, and Syracuse that run the state. Even though you look at the Politico map during elections, you've got all this red across the state, and you got like 3 or 4 pockets of blue, and they go Democrat or they go liberal. And we've got to do something here in Tennessee to prevent that.
Well, I think you have enough voters across the state of Tennessee that will prevent that from happening. You don't have enough people in Tennessee. So the difference is there are more people in the state of Chicago than there are, the city.
That's
See, that's what I did. But you have more people in the city of Chicago than you have in the rest of the state. In Tennessee, it isn't that way.
But with all the people that are coming here, I mean, I live in Sumner County. Sumner County is filling up with people from California, New York, Illinois, some of the other liberal states, because they don't like it there. But the problem is when they come here, they like everything here. They say, "Oh, we love it here," and everything. But they still see themselves as Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
And they vote down, a lot of them vote down party lines, thinking that our Democrats here in this state are different than the ones that they came from, just because you're in the South now. And, well, these people obviously got sense. Look how their states run. But they don't realize that it's because we've had conservative Republicans in office
rather than put something in place like you're talking about, wouldn't you be better off having conversations with these Californians and showing them why it's better to be a conservative?
Every opportunity I get.
Good.
Every opportunity I get. You know, when I run into somebody and they say they're from California, I say, that's nice. And they talk about how they like it here. And a lot of times by the end of the conversation, I say, if that's where you feel, why didn't you fight for it in your state where you grew up? You like it out there. They love California. They just don't like the politics. And they give up. And it's like, you can't give up. I mean, if we'd have done that, we'd have lost the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, but I don't want to say to a Californian that you're not welcome here.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Yeah. They're more than welcome to come here. But they've got to understand that if they bring their it's not their political views, but it's their political affiliation.
Well, that and maybe some of their ideology. You got to remember, some of that ideology has nothing to do with their pocketbook. And most of the reason why Californians end up moving here is because of the taxes. That's most of the reason. So everything else, though, is an ideology and a belief that doesn't necessarily coincide with the beliefs and who we are as Tennesseans. So that's, hearts and minds, my friend, hearts and minds.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Wayne, for your telephone call. I appreciate it today. And I'm not, look, we are a welcoming state. I do welcome people from other states that are liberal states. But gun control is not part of our ideology here in Tennessee. Responsible gun ownership is, absolutely. I mean, hello, duh. Ding, ding, ding. We're not stupid. You need to be a responsible gun owner. We believe in putting criminals behind bars. Liberal DAs don't, for some odd reason. I believe that there is, yes, a desperation out there that criminals have, but that doesn't give you an excuse to commit crimes because you had a bad childhood. In fact, when we come back, I'm going to play some audio from Chicago's new mayor, or maybe mayor-elect, regarding what happened over the weekend where teenagers mobbed the city and started vandalizing cars all downtown Chicago. It was It was chaos. It was craziness. And I want you to hear what he had to say about all that when we come back. And we'll take your phone calls. 615-737-9986 is the phone number. I'm Pamela Furr and for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:22. Good afternoon. Happy Monday to you. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy, who will be in for Brian Wilson a little later on this afternoon. In fact, 3 o'clock on the drive. So be listening for that. Meanwhile, an Illinois state senator is defending the Chicago teen takeover that unfolded Saturday night and left multiple boys shot, claiming it was simply a mass protest against poverty and segregation. I'm not joking, y'all. Robert Peters, who represents part of Chicago, responded to the chaotic scene that saw hundreds of local youth smashing car windows, jumping on and surrounding video. Let me try this again. Jumping on surrounding vehicles and firing guns in the streets just randomly. So rather than condemn the chaos that left tourists running in fear, Peters suggested it was a mass protest. He said, since I'm a glutton for punishment and I'm sure I'm going to get the most unhinged crime weirdo replies, but I would look at the behavior of young people as a political act and statement. This is what he wrote on Twitter. It's a mass protest against poverty and segregation. It's a mass protest against poverty and segregation because segregation issues are predominant here in this country in 2023. Dude, what the hell are you talking about? Excuse my French. Not only that, but you also have your mayor-elect more or less saying the same thing. Is my computer up, Belle? Let's hear from the mayor-elect of Chicago.
Because that's how they can eat?
The real answer is, how do we make sure, the question is, how do we make sure that people can eat? Look, no one is going to condone, behavior that quite frankly speaks to a level of desperation.
So you're not...
What? A level of, I'm so desperate, I'm going to go attack all the cars downtown in Chicago because I'm hungry. Okay, let's continue. This is Brandon Johnson, who is he's the mayor-elect, I do believe, in Chicago. Here we go.
That quite frankly speaks to a level of desperation.
So you're not condoning looting?
I'm saying that people are acting out of desperation. We don't want a society that is acting out of desperation.
We also don't want a society that's going to keep me from driving down the street for fear that I'm going to be shot or someone's going to commandeer my car and, I don't know, set it on fire. Who have y'all elected in Chicago?
We don't want a society that is acting out of desperation, but you have to pay attention to the cries that people have.
So you're not condoning looting?
There's no way to embrace that. What I'm saying is you can't condone the looting that corporations continue to do every single day when they take tax dollars from black, brown, white folks all over the city of Chicago so that they can turn a profit.
I don't even know what to say to that. So you can't condemn the looting that's happening from people on the streets of Chicago while corporations are looting what? By taking tax dollars out of your pocket if you're a black man, brown man, and it seems like he just kind of added white just for good measure. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. So because you don't like the way corporations run their businesses, it's okay to hit the streets and set cars on fire. It's okay to smash windows and shoot randomly in the streets of Chicago and break into businesses and take stuff. It's okay to do that. Instead of coming out and saying this is unacceptable, we will find you and prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. He has this kind of BS coming out of his mouth. Do you want to know why it's difficult to recruit a police officer in Chicago, Illinois? It's for that crap right there. Police don't want to arrest them if they're not going to get prosecuted. It's a waste of their time and energy, and they put their lives on the line only to set them free. So nobody's doing anything about it. Prosecutors aren't prosecuting anybody, and chaos continues in these blue cities. Remember we were talking about red and blue earlier? In these blue cities. Illinois is a blue state, but it's only because of Chicago. But you have more people living in the Chicago area than you do the rest of the state, so they're doomed. I used to live there. I lived there for 4 years. I lived in the capital city. By the way, the capital city is not Chicago. But you have more conservative people living in the rest of the state going, I don't recognize this state at all. And they're paying huge amounts in state taxes. For what? I'm just blown away. And again, you had a state legislator, Robert Peters, who represents part of Chicago, saying, I will look at the behavior of young people as a political act and statement. It's a mass protest against poverty and segregation. Hundreds of police officers were called to the scene. They arrested 9 adults, 6 juveniles in connection to the riot. There were a lot more people there. A man was taken to the hospital after being beaten by a group of teenagers after they jumped on and smashed his windshield while he and his wife sat helplessly inside. WLS reported that a 6-year-old boy had to go to the hospital. He was shot in the arm. 2 teenage boys, a 16-year-old and a 17-year-old, were shot in the crowd too. Mayor-elect Brandon Johnson, who you just heard from just a moment ago, said that while he condemns the riot, it's not constructive to demonize youth. You got to call a spade a spade. You've got to call right and wrong, guys. It's not constructive to allow youth and thugs run your city into the ground. A 6-year-old. And you want to tell me, somebody's going to tell me, well, if we didn't have guns on the street, most of what happened in Chicago, although there were shootings, wasn't done with guns. They didn't smash these windshields with the guns in their hands. They didn't set the cars on fires with guns, people. It's 1:30. I'm Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:35. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in here later on this afternoon at 3. So be listening for that. He's in for Brian on the drive. You can call us 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. I'm getting chastised by 1837. Is that how we do it? We identify these texters by their last 4 digits. He's saying, funny how you hadn't mentioned the white man who shot a 13-year-old black boy for just ringing his doorbell. Well, here's the thing. I don't know all the stories that are out there. I can't read every story that's out there. So I am not aware of this one. So send me the link. Send me the link. Let me read about it. Let me do some investigating, and I'll be happy to talk about it. But I find it interesting that some people think that we know everything. Now, Belle knows everything. Matt knows
I
most
don't
things.
know. Don't put that burden on me. I know nothing. I am
You know
Schultz.
nothing. I know nothing. Dan Mandis thinks he knows everything. I'm teasing. See, I'm just joking. I don't mean that. But the truth of the matter is, come on, guys. Give us a little bit of break here. Send me the story, that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that the 13-year-old was shot. Was he killed? I mean, I don't know what happened. I don't know what the deal was. Did the white man, how old was he? Did he think somebody was breaking into his house? I mean, I don't know what happened. So send me the story, and I'll be happy to look at it, and I'll be happy to talk about it. The question another person posed, 7422. Doesn't Chicago have any gun laws? Why, yes, they do. It's funny you should say that. They have very strict gun laws. And yet that didn't prevent a 6-year-old from getting shot in the leg. It didn't prevent a 16-year-old, and it didn't prevent a 17-year-old from getting shot in the streets of Chicago over the weekend. So, I mean, do you need stricter gun laws? I mean, when these desperate people are just crying out for help, what about their guns? Did they pick up a gun because they're just so desperate and hungry? Or did they pick up a gun because, I don't know, they're criminals? Did they pick up a gun because life has been so unfair and they're segregated? I mean, in Chicago, there are so many jobs that are available. In the state of Illinois, there are so many jobs available. Are you telling me these thugs in Chicago are so desperate they couldn't get a... Are they being prohibited from working for a living? They're talking about segregation. What segregation? What are they talking about? This is what's so interesting to me, is that there are those who are trying to hijack a narrative, that they're trying to convince you. I think this is the definition of gaslighting. They're trying to convince you something's happening when it is not happening. They don't have proof that it's happening. You know, segregation, I believe that's against the law the last time I checked. Right? Equal rights that exist in our country. You can't discriminate. It's against the law. And if you find discrimination, you sue. And if you say, I don't have the money to sue, there are organizations, nonprofit legal help, nonprofit organizations that offer legal help that you can find to help you in a lawsuit if you're being discriminated against. I don't think that the narrative here is based on fact, but they want you to believe that it is, and so they get you riled up. That's what's going to happen at 2 o'clock today. I keep bringing up the Tennessee Moral Mondays because I remembered such a joke it was in North Carolina with Bishop William Barber. He's not a hero. He likes the camera. He likes the camera. He likes the attention. So he's decided to take on this cause here in Tennessee. More or less saying desperate people do desperate things. Because the people's voice is not being heard. It's a lie. (141-737-9986) is the phone number. 615-5 I must give out my cell phone number. I've been known to do that a couple of times. 615-737-9986 is the phone number if you would like to text, or you can call. One texter says very few people commit crimes with guns they stole. They purchased them from prior people who steal them, and I'd bet they live in what the left calls impoverished conditions. Wait a minute. Very few people commit crimes with guns they stole. They purchased them from prior people who sell them. So they buy stolen guns hoping that it won't get traced to them. Is that what you're trying to say? I don't know. There is widespread segregation in the form of minority-only clubs, organizations, and schools. Is there a minority-only school? I mean, you have historically black colleges, but white people can go to those schools. I have a friend, white as a ghost, bald, the whole 9 yards, who went to TSU on a minority scholarship because he was the minority. He was the white guy. But they can't discriminate against you because you are not a majority. Minority-only clubs? Is that happening here? Minority-only organizations? Is that happening here? Someone's asking, where's the money coming from these protests that are happening? Good question. How do these people have time to show up at the Capitol? I mean, are you going to take every Monday afternoon off? Now, William Barber gets paid to be an activist, but he's wanting people to show up in droves. Are we talking people without jobs? Has to be. Who's going to give you time off from work every Monday so you can go protest? I'm going to go protest today. Yes, but we have work that needs to get done. Well, that's going to have to wait till tomorrow. This is more important. Well, what are you accomplishing there at the Capitol? Change. Really? What kind of change? Yes. I still go back to that because that's what it feels like. When do you want this change to happen? Right now. Black caucuses or minority clubs? Well, I guess that's the point. I guess it is, isn't it? You can't have a white caucus. And I understand, trust me, I understand that there are different legislative needs that are out there for minority groups. I understand that there are different legislative needs for, let's say, the Latino community, as opposed to just everyday, ordinary white woman things. So I understand, but they're fighting on behalf of their community. I don't have a problem with that. What I do have a problem with is painting the picture of a Tennessean. If they're white, they must be racist. If they're white, they must think that they are more superior to you. That's what racism is, by the way. If they are a white Tennessean, they want you, if you're a different color, to sit in the back of the bus. And that's just not true. They want to paint the picture that if you are black in the state of Tennessee, that the white guy wants you to sit down and shut up. And that's not true. As Mike Sparks pointed out, if you were listening, I don't know how long it's been since he called, Representative Mike Sparks from down in the Rutherford County area. As he pointed out, there was a representative who was pulled off the ballot. He was a Democrat and he was black. Because although he believed in some of the Democrat ideology, he was firmly pro-life. He was against abortion. And for that, he was removed from the ballot. He marched with Dr. King, and he was removed from the ballot. Is that discrimination? Is that a racist thing to do? I'm sure they call him every name in the book behind his back. Names that I'm not going to use on the radio. They probably call him, there's one I can use. They probably call him an Uncle Tom. I'm sure he's heard that word, that phrase. And although on a lot of things ideologically, am I saying that ideologically, that I disagree with him on, he is a delightful human being. If you ever get the opportunity to sit down and talk to him, I encourage you to do so. When all that went down a couple of years ago, we talked to him several times on the air here at WTN. But we're racist and white privileged. We actually had a black man on the air here? Yes, we did. It's 1:48. I am Pamela Furr. In for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 1:56. Good afternoon. It's Monday. What a gorgeous, gorgeous day. It was a gorgeous weekend. Shout out to the folks in Leaper's Fork. I got to spend some time in Leaper's Fork over the weekend, and I did something else, Belle. Oh, my gosh. I had a piece of cheese. I'm not
What the hell is wrong with you?
I know. I'm not supposed to eat a piece of cheese. I had an issue. It was there. And it kept saying, Pamela, you know you love cheese. So with Awaken 180, yes, I faltered for a moment, but here's what's really great about Awaken 180.
I'm a murderer that eats babies.
Is that I can jump, I don't have to spiral into, oh my God, I've had a piece of cheese, so I might as well eat the rest of this pizza.
I can taste it.
You know what I mean? So, you just jump right back on the wagon and you're good to go.
Nip it in the bud.
Stop it. And your coach says, okay, that wasn't good, but that's all right. You're still on track to lose the weight that you wanted to lose.
You want to get high?
You stop. I'm trying to be serious here for a program that we're both on that really does work. But that's the good thing. I mean, I know you've had experiences where you just get right back on and you'll be fine. You'll be okay. It's not the end of the world. You have to do that with anything. It's
That
life.
really got out of hand fast.
It really did. All right. So 1:58. Shout out, though, to the folks in Leaper's Fork. I had an opportunity to taste some old Weller antique bourbon that is probably the best bourbon I've ever had in my mouth. It was so good. Oh, my goodness. And as we continue to kind of plan for this year's Bourbon Bash, I'm hoping we can find a bottle of antique Weller that we can use in our silent auction, because I think that would bring in a lot of money. It is so good. All right, enough of that. When we come back, I do want to again remind you about Moral Mondays. I'm trying to think of a way that we could hijack Moral Mondays here in the state of Tennessee, because it's now going to be a thing. It was a thing in North Carolina for a while, but let me tell you something else. And I'm waiting for music to play. Are we good on time? So I'm waiting to see if what they're threatening to do is actually going to come into fruition, if you will. They're threatening to go door to door this summer and start talking about gun reform, how blacks are being disenfranchised in the state of Tennessee, et cetera, et cetera. So my question is, Republicans, are you prepared for this? Because apparently this means war for them, and we have to be able to counter those activities this summer with going door to door ourselves, or at least making sure our message is clear so that Tennessee at least doesn't start forming a shade of purple. All right, news is next. I'm Pamela Furr. Another hour together coming up on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 64 degrees and a sunny day in Nashville. And we're expecting some gorgeous days for the first at least 3 days of this week. Sunny, clear skies and starry nights. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. Governor Lee has signed a bill into law providing more than $3 billion into easing traffic congestion.
The Transportation Modernization Act invests in roads in every part of the state and includes money to explore choice lanes where drivers would pay a fee to use in order to get to where they're going faster. Choice lanes would run alongside current roadways and interstates. 2 studies were released this year on how much time people spend in traffic. They show commuters in Nashville spend an extra 80 hours a year stuck in traffic. It was 51 hours extra in Memphis. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And sticking with roads in Tennessee, it's National Work Zone Awareness Week this week, which means there's going to be more work zone safety messages on all of our interstates, trying to tell you to just move over a lane when in a work zone. News 2 reports that TDOT's campaigning for people to follow the move over law in work zones as construction's going to keep ramping up further into the spring and summer seasons. TDOT reports over 3,800 crashes in work zones last year. 23 of those were fatal. 113 workers have been killed in the line of duty since TDOT began keeping records. That's in 1948. Drivers who violate the move over law in Tennessee can be fined up to $500 or spend up to 30 days in jail. And there's an outrage in rural southeast Oklahoma over racist comments made by local leaders that were caught on recordings. Here's Alex Stone.
On secret audio recordings made by the McCurtain County Gazette, the county sheriff and other leaders are allegedly heard after a county commissioners meeting talking about being frustrated that black people can no longer be lynched and about how they wanted to kill 2 Gazette reporters knowing hitmen and hiding the bodies.
Well, I know where 2 big deep holes are if you ever need them. I got an excavator. These are free done.
Now, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt is calling for the sheriff and others to resign. The local hospital is on lockdown because of protests.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:05. I am Pamela Furr. In for Matt Murphy, who will be in later on. In fact, 55 minutes or so. He'll be in for Brian Wilson on the drive, so be listening for that. Now, a super texter said, why aren't you talking about that shooting that happened? I believe it was in Kansas. You're not talking about that white guy who shot a black kid. Well, okay. I didn't know about it. I have to be honest. I didn't know about it. I was researching other stories today, so let's talk about it, shall we? A homeowner is accused of shooting a black teenager in Missouri after the 16-year-old was mistakenly ringing his doorbell. He's said to be an elderly white man in his 80s. Ralph Yarl is 16 years old and was shot twice through the glass front door of the house in Kansas City, Missouri, I guess the Missouri side, just a block away from the property his twin brothers were waiting to be picked up from. It looks like he went to the wrong door. He reportedly pulled into the driveway at the home around 10 o'clock on April the 13th. So what was that? That was Friday night? I think that's right. Thursday night. Rang the doorbell and was immediately shot in the head. Oh, my God. By the homeowner. Holy smokes. The shooter has not been officially identified, but the Kansas City Police Department detention unit confirmed to CNN that a white man in his 80s with an address matching the property where the incident occurred was taken into custody but later released. Now you have celebrities getting involved. Viola Davis and Halle Berry have both since called for justice for Ralph after hundreds of protesters marched outside of the home of the suspected shooter on Sunday with the victim's family to demand action. More than $1.2 million have been raised by a GoFundMe account to help Ralph and his family with the medical bills as he remains in the hospital in critical but stable condition. I thought I saw where they released him from the hospital, but I will double check on that. Davis and Berry are both putting pressure on Kansas City prosecutor Zachary Thompson to bring appropriate charges. All hands on deck, Davis said in a social media post with the photo of the teenager. He didn't deserve what happened to him. We won't stand for it. We are coming for justice. Use the contact information below to demand prosecutor Zachary Thompson make an immediate arrest and bring the appropriate charges. Guys, the man was arrested and he was released. Now, I don't know what this kid did when he came to the door. I don't know that he deserved what he got. Doesn't sound like he did. But I don't know all the details. Neither do you. Neither does Halle Berry. Neither does Viola Davis. Halle Berry said, his name is Ralph Yarl, and I'm sick and tired of this feeling. My heart completely broke when I learned this precious 16-year-old who accidentally rang the door of the wrong address in an attempt to pick up his siblings was shot in the head by a man who didn't want him on his property. This innocent child is now fighting for his life. This could be your child. This should not happen. Please do something today. The teenager's family branded the incident a hate crime. I've seen a press conference from the the police department there, and they say right now there's nothing to indicate that this is a hate crime. Ralph's aunt, Dr. Faith Spoonmore, claims when the teenager fell to the floor, he was shot again, but miraculously managed to run next door to a neighbor for help. She said her nephew had to knock on 3 doors before he was helped, and even then was told to lie on the floor with his hands above his head. I don't know if that's true or not. That's sad, but I'm going to tell you something. For me, it would be difficult for me to open the door to a stranger. White, black, yellow, purple, green. I was living in Springfield, Illinois. when even a police officer knocked on my door and I did not open it. He knew I was home. He saw my car. He actually knew who I was, but wanted me to come out. They were looking for somebody in the neighborhood and they were going door to door to see if anybody had seen this particular individual that had committed a crime. I can't at this time remember, because this has been 14 years ago. Can't remember what the crime was. But I didn't open my door. My words were, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't know you. If you'll step back from the door, I can talk to you through this peephole, but I'm not going to open the door." The police officer was fine with that. I've had people knock on my door, people I don't know, looking for help. I have a Ring camera. "Sorry, I can't help you." Now, if somebody was sitting there bleeding, I would call 911, of course. I would tell them, "Hold on, help's coming. Hold on." But you understand, we live in a day and time where you don't know who's knocking on your door. It could be somebody that really does need help, and it could also be somebody that wants to hurt you, rob you, rape you, whatever. I mean, I don't live in fear like that every day, but my point is that's the kind of time and day and age we live in. And it's not about skin color at all. At all. I don't know if that's what this old man thought was happening to him. This is a horrible situation. Missouri, by the way, is one of 20 U.S. states which has stand your ground laws, which removes the duty to retreat before using deadly force in self-defense. I don't know how you can prove self-defense when you're shooting through a glass locked door. I don't know. The law permits homeowners to protect themselves or a third party, with some exemptions, with deadly force should a person feel it is necessary. According to Missouri statutes, and I think they were revised at one point, residents must be faced with a threat before shooting trespassers on the property. It states protective force is used against a person who unlawfully enters, remains after unlawfully entering, or attempts to unlawfully enter a dwelling, residence, or vehicle lawfully occupied but by such person. I don't know if the kid, when knocking on the door at the wrong house, kept trying to open the door and the 80-year-old didn't know what was going on and felt like he was threatened. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. So before this swift call to justice, you might want to get all the facts first. Here's what I do know: when you're talking about a situation where bullets are flying and you have to wait until you get all the information in, don't you? Before you start screaming for justice, because you don't know what happened. And I know this from breaking news experience, that the first information you receive is usually not the accurate information, because it's still fluid. This was not an error. This is a hate crime. This is the family. You don't shoot a child in the head because he rang your doorbell. He walked up to the door, rang the doorbell. A man opened up the door, looked him in the eye, and said, "Don't ever come back here," as he shot him in the head. This is a family member, Ralph's aunt, Dr. Faith Spoonmore, saying this. Quote, "My nephew fell down and the man shot him again. He was able to get up and ran to the neighbor who did not open the door. He ran to 3 houses before one of the neighbors said, 'Put your hands up and lay on the ground.' And then he lay on the ground like he passed out before the neighbor called the police for help." You hear these stories about racism in America and you think, wow, how sad is this? But then you have this little bit of hope because you feel like it's very far away and it would never happen to your family and you. But God, the people in this country are sick. I would say the people in this country are afraid. Again, if he had to go to 3 different houses, and the one house he did go to, they said, lay down on the ground, put your hands on your head, and I'll call the police. It's not because of racism, it's because of fear. Fear that if you open the door, it could be we watch too much TV. Could be somebody, standing in the bushes ready to pounce on you. It was all a ruse just to get in your house and get your stuff. I mean, that happens, does it not? It's fear. Fear of your skin color. Fear of crime. I'm looking at pictures of this young man. He seems to be a talented bass clarinet player who led a section of his high school's marching band and plays multiple instruments in the Northland Symphony Youth Orchestra. Ralph was known among his peers for his intellect and for being a musical genius before he was shot in the head and shot in the arm. Unless you can prove this 80-year-old was a dang racist, this seems like a tragedy all the way around. And I'm sure the prosecutor is looking to see what he needs to do. If they let him go after taking him into custody, maybe the guy was delusional. Maybe he has dementia. He's in his 80s. A colossal mistake. Maybe. My point is, we don't know yet, do we? We don't. But that's the story. And for the texter who said, why aren't you talking about this story? Well, there you go. I just did. Thank you. It is 2:18. I am Pamela Furr, in for Matt Murphy on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Governor Lee signed the Transportation Modernization Act into law. Plus, we learn more about the security activity by the Chinese government on U.S. soil. That and more, 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, McMorey. Did you have a great weekend?
It was fantastic.
Excelente.
The weather was nice.
Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, I went to a dog day park, kind of doggy fun day thing at a dog park yesterday in Nashville. Didn't really know what they called it, but it was super fun. Bunch of dogs, and my dog had a great time.
A whole lot of dogs. All right,
Yep.
What kind of dog do you have? I didn't know this.
She's a red heeler. Her name's Copper. I got her when I was still working in Wyoming.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much, McMorey. We look forward to your newscast at 2:30. So Bishop William Barber II, Tennessee National Faith Leaders, Impacted Leaders, Advocates to Unite for Moral Monday rally. They're all marching to demand extremists stop using state capitals to trample on democracy. Is that not ridiculous? I'm sorry, but it is. They're rallying now at this church, this United Methodist Church. Then they plan on marching to the Capitol. And by 4 o'clock, they're all going to be at the Capitol. Now, my question is, how many from Tennessee will be a part of this group? How many outsiders do you think they've bussed in? How many people do you think they will have on hand with a bullhorn demanding justice? Justice for what? Don't know. Action. Action for what? We don't know. But I'm going to let you hear from Justin Jones and William Barber, who were on MSNBC yesterday, I do believe. And here is my computer up, Belle. Here we go.
I just want to make sure I heard you correctly in your response there. You said that this is a movement and that this summer you want to go to the districts of these Republican members in the supermajority so that their constituents can know what happened. It's one thing to say it. Are you actively organizing, getting things in place in order to go to those districts this summer and tell the truth about what happened last week?
Definitely, Jonathan. We have been talking to folks all weekend.
Justin Jones.
We have so many young people who've signed on saying, how can we continue this pressure? And so we're building a movement. This is not a moment. It is a movement. We're going to organize, particularly young people. We're trying to organize buses to go to these counties, to go to Representative Lambert's county and Sumner County, to go to the Speaker's District in Crossville, and to knock doors and talk to people and say, do you know what's happening in Nashville? Do you know that these people are more obedient to the NRA, more obedient to special interests, more obedient to these corporate lobbies than to the people of our state? Because the truth be told, these issues are impacting their county just as much as it's impacting my county.
Yeah, but here's what I want to say to Justin Jones. You're not listening to the majority of the people in Tennessee. Now, you might be able to find pockets of people in each county. I mean, you've got Republicans and Democrats everywhere. This is a southern state, and there, believe it or not, is a thing called a Southern Democrat that, quite frankly, has the same values as conservatives have. They just have the D by their name because their grandma always did, and their grandpa and their father, etc., is generational. What's unfortunate, you and I listening today, we know what's up. We know what happened. We do know the truth. I guarantee you, go to any bar in Nashville, in Hendersonville, in Clarksville, in Dixon, in Lebanon. I mean, I can go down in Murfreesboro, and you ask them, are you aware of what happened at the state capitol on this date in history? They're going to look at you with glassy eyes. No, I heard things got lively, but they are not going. Most people don't know and don't care. Let's just be honest. Most Tennesseans are not that plugged in. So the danger here is that you've got these guys actively working to come up with a plan during the summer before the elections in the fall They have a plan to go door to door, knock on doors, and start talking to people and say, are you aware of what happened? And then they are able to get their narrative across to people who aren't plugged in, to people who are not paying attention. And most will think, well, you took the time out of your day to knock on my door to tell me what's happening, to tell me what's up. It must be true. That's the danger here. That's the problem here. Republicans, are you ready for this? They're organizing, and they're organizing with a lot of money. Somebody's backing them up with money, and somebody's backing them up with the language that they should use. This is not organic. This is not grassroots. This is well planned, well thought up. There we go. Are you ready?
The poorest county in Tennessee is a rural white county, Grundy County. They're not focused on them. They're focused on obeying their corporate donors and obeying these special interests. They just had all those Republican funders here in Nashville at a very expensive 5-star hotel plotting how they're going to change the narrative. But
not plotting how they're going to change the narrative in Tennessee. That was an RNC meeting, pal. That was an RNC meeting. That was a national retreat with national donors to talk about the upcoming presidential election. Pal, friend, buddy, Justin Jones.
But what they're not doing is going to meet with the people in their district. In fact, the Speaker of the House, he lives in a mansion here in Nashville. He doesn't even live in his...
By the way, a $600,000 house in Nashville is not exactly a mansion. Hello? A $600,000 house in Nashville is what? Probably a 2-bedroom, 1-bath? I think that's what the alleged cost of this house that Cameron Sexton lives in here in Nashville, which they're trying to make a controversy out of, and I don't know that it's much of a controversy, so I'm not really addressing it. Find a thread on my Twitter feed from Phil Williams addressing the so-called scandal about not living in your district, et cetera, et cetera. It's BS. These people are trying to take down leadership in Tennessee. There's all kinds of rumors out there about other things, too. Be really careful about what you throw out there and what you believe. Let me finish with Justin Jones, and then we'll take a break here. Justin Jones on MSNBC this weekend.
His district, as we saw reported this week, in his rural district in Crossville. And so we have to go and not tell people who to vote for, but to tell on these politicians, to tell on
them. We got to tell on them.
All my colleagues who are not doing the people's work, particularly when it comes to poor people and rural people. They've let their hospitals close. So if they get shot by gun violence, they don't even have hospitals to go to because we refuse to expand Medicaid.
Well, I don't know if it's because we refuse to expand Medicaid, but I will say he does have a point on hospitals. There are hospitals in some rural counties in the state of Tennessee that have closed, and they don't have anywhere to go in that county. They have to go outside the county if there's any kind of medical problem. He's not wrong about that, but he's taking that issue and putting his narrative into it. We'll come back. We'll have more. Right now, it's time for news. I'm Pamela Furr on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
31 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Currently 65 degrees and a sunny, beautiful afternoon on Music Row. And it's looking like we've got a few sunny afternoons ahead of us this week. Clear skies into clear, starry nights. Weather forecast coming up in just a couple of minutes. Governor Lee has signed the Transportation Modernization Act into law. It invests $3.3 billion to keep up with growth and ease traffic congestion. Some of the money will go to explore choice lanes, which officials explain commuters could pay to use.
These will be additional lanes that run alongside our current roadways, interstates, where we could have an additional lane or lanes in the future to where you could have a choice to get into these lanes and be able to get to where you're going faster.
Studies released this year on how much time people spend in traffic show commuters in Nashville spend an extra 80 hours a year stuck in traffic. And the FBI today revealed what it said is evidence of the expanding espionage and security activity by the Chinese government on U.S. soil. Aaron Katersky brings us some more details.
Federal prosecutors called it outrageous. U.S. Attorney Breon Peace said China secretly established its own police station in New York City and used it to spy on, co-opt, or intimidate Chinese dissidents living in the city and elsewhere.
The defendant's actions under the direction of the Chinese government are flagrant violations of American sovereignty.
The FBI searched the de facto police station last year. It's believed to be one of as many as 100 such outposts around the world. In a separate case, prosecutors said Chinese security officials spied on Zoom calls, identified targets, and then harassed Chinese dissidents.
And that is the latest news. Weather's coming up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:37. I am Pamela Furr in for Matt Murphy, who will be in for Brian Wilson coming up at 3 o'clock. So be listening for that as Brian is off this week. Ron DeSantis, by the way, was not here over the weekend. Does anybody find that interesting? I find that interesting. There was an RNC fundraiser, Republican National Committee fundraiser for big donors. It was kind of a spring retreat, if you will. And it was at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown here. Started Friday. I think it ended sometime Sunday. Mike Pence was the keynote Friday night. Donald Trump was the keynote Saturday night. I know he was on one of our golf courses on Sunday. And by the way, hello to all those playing in the John Daly tournament today down in Williamson County. Howdy to John Daly. But Ron DeSantis wasn't here. So that, to me, is interesting when so many people have talked about him actually running for president, that he is really considering running for president of the United States. You would think that if that were the case, that he would have been at this RNC fundraiser this weekend, since we're talking about big donors. Here's the other thing that's interesting to me. Our lawmakers are now endorsing President Trump for president for the 2024 election, when we don't know who all the candidates are going to be. So that tells me they know something we don't. Because in my opinion, I think it's a tad bit early to go ahead and put out your endorsements. So what do they know that we don't know? That's my first question. Then second, why wasn't Ron DeSantis here this past weekend if he really is considering running for president? Meanwhile, I am 100% on board with this from Ron DeSantis. I'm not a big advocate on the death penalty. No, I'm not one of those. I'm not going to go protest anywhere. I do value human life, even a bad life. I'm of the belief that I'm going to quote a line from that movie, Vanilla Sky, every moment is a chance to turn it all around. With every breath is a moment to turn it all around. You get the picture. As long as you have breath, there's still hope that you can make it into heaven with every breath. And there have been instances, even in prison, where people have turned their lives around. There's also too many cases where an innocent was put to death. I am an advocate of the Innocence Project. Very much so. So I'm not a big fan of the death penalty unless you're talking about a pedophile. And I'm a weirdo in that I think that pedophile should suffer. Suffer a lot before you put him to death. A whole lot. So Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, he's pushing a tough on crime agenda with his support for two bills in the state legislature there, including one that would challenge the U.S. Supreme Court. DeSantis is backing a bill that would authorize the death penalty for child rapists. Under the legislation, a jury, by a vote of at least 8-4, can recommend a death sentence for sexual battery on a child under the age of 12. Yes. We are authorizing the death penalty for child rapists, he said. This was this morning, during an interview with an Orlando radio station. My view is, he said, you have some of these people that will be serial rapists of 6-7-year-old kids. I think the death penalty is the only appropriate punishment when you have situations like that. Yes, 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 yes. Now, there was a Supreme Court ruling. It was back in 2008. It was a 5-4 ruling that held that the Eighth Amendment's ban on cruel and unusual punishment prevented the death penalty for child rapists. How in thee, you know what, is that cruel and unusual punishment? For a child rapist? DeSantis touting his crime credentials. With his support for a series of bills in the state capitol, he has slammed the Democratic soft-on-crime policies and woke ideology in other states as he pushes his own vision not only for Florida, but for America. Now, according to this article, the crackdown comes ahead of an expected announcement that he's running for president. Now, if he is running for president, again, I have to ask, why wasn't he here this past weekend at this big RNC fundraiser? Just wondering. But he told this Orlando radio station that he thinks the current high court would hear a challenge to the older ruling on the death penalty for child rape. Many of the justices that made that ruling are no longer on the bench. He said, I think we're right at the law, and I think that its current court would consider a challenge to that. He's also pushing a second death penalty measure that would remove the requirement that only a unanimous jury can issue the death penalty. Now, I'm not for that one. The bill is in response to the outrage last year after a divided jury meant Parkland shooter Nicholas Cruz received life in prison instead of the death penalty. In 2020, the state Supreme Court said unanimous jury recommendations were not needed, although the law remains on the books. Now DeSantis is moving to just get rid of it altogether. Under the legislation, it would be at least 8 members of a 12-person jury would have to recommend the death sentence. Man, I disagree. The bill was proposed after a 9-3 vote, if you will, by the jury in the Parkland case spared the shooter from capital punishment. But, I mean, here's what I'm going to say. He's not living a blessed life in prison, per se. You know, this kid is probably in solitary most of the time because it was a high-profile case. He's probably not in Gen Pop. I would have to look that up. General population. I know the families probably wanted the death penalty. The truth of the matter is, even if he would have gotten the death penalty, he would remain on death row for decades. As DeSantis goes about his book tour across the country, which he was supposed to be here in Franklin for his, quote, book tour, but that was canceled because of what had happened at Covenant School. But he's telling people that, he is slamming prosecutors and those he sees as soft on crime. Life in prison without the possibility of parole is certainly not soft on crime. Child rapists, though, and child predators most of the time end up with parole. And for me, and this is awful, and I know cruel and unusual punishment, the whole 9 yards, but gosh, I'd like to see a botched electrocution. And you have to come back and try it again next week and botch that one up and do it again another week and fry them. Is that awful? Yeah, it is. But we're talking about people who rape children. Rape children. lethal injection is too good for people who rape children, in my opinion. All right, 2:48. I am Pamela Furr. Look at a firing range. But oops, we only shot your legs this time. Crap, let's try it again next week. That's and then finally, eventually, for child rapist. Is that wrong? I'm going to have to pray to God if that's wrong, because that is certainly how I feel. All right, it is 2:48. Matt Murphy's coming in here in just a moment to tell us what he's got coming up on his program. Actually, it's the Brian Wilson, The Drive Show at 3, but Matt Murphy is filling in, so he's telling us what's coming up in just a minute after this break on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We are learning more about the 21-year-old service member who leaked classified documents from the Pentagon, and we're also learning more right here in Nashville on a terrible crime story in which a 3-month-old baby was left in an apartment where that baby later died. 3 o'clock right here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you very much, Mac Maury. It is 2:56. Matt Murphy, welcome to your show.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to have you.
How's everybody?
Doing great.
Is it almost noon already?
No,
I didn't realize.
Oh, you're late.
Oh, no.
Yes, you're
Thank
late
goodness
for
you
a
were
very,
here, Pamela.
very important date. No, you'll be in at 3 o'clock while Brian is off this week. You look good in my shades.
How about that right there?
Future's so hot, you got to wear shades.
I'm not stretching them, I promise.
Yeah, please don't. Oh, man, they do look small on your face.
They are. Well, I've got a big old head.
Well, I mean, they're girl glasses. Hello.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so first of all, you've got Congressman John Rose on the show.
4:05 this afternoon.
Yeah.
We will talk a number of issues, including Ukraine, including all of these classified leaks and the debt ceiling, but first and foremost, his endorsement of former President Donald Trump.
Yes.
And there's been does this not feel like that there's something that we don't know about?
That's what
to
I've
happen?
been saying all day. They know something that we don't. And Ron DeSantis, who everybody keeps saying is going to run for president, was not at this meeting. You would have thought he would have been there, especially if he is indeed a contender.
I have it on my big sheet of stuff to do this afternoon. And the question is, because we've all, at least I won't say we all, but most of us have assumed that these two type A personalities could not figure it out well enough to be a running duo.
Right.
Is it possible they could figure it out? Because it is, if they could figure it out, and I understand that Trump demands fealty to his subordinates and all of those things, but if they could figure it out,
that'd be one hell of a ticket.
It'd be a hell of a ticket.
But if they were trying to figure that out, I would think he would have been there. So I'm thinking that DeSantis and the RNC have been talking. I don't know, but I'll tell you something else. The RNC sure as hell didn't help Donald Trump the first time. It's interesting that they're all about Donald Trump this time. That's interesting to me because they didn't help him before.
For the first time in a long time today, I'm doubting whether Ron DeSantis is running for president in 2024.
It's because of that meeting this weekend. He wasn't there.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, and our guys are now coming out with endorsements for Trump way early. So they know something we don't.
We shall see.
Of course they do. You have anybody else coming up?
Brink Fiddler will be on as well. It's the
Excellent.
3-week anniversary of the tragedy.
Is he coming in studio?
We're going to try to figure out why we haven't gotten our hands on the manifesto.
Yep. All right, cool. That's coming up at 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.